finalmente nel terror mio stolto vede a ceffi di sbirro in ogni volto. La pilla, la corona, a piede della Madonna mi sprizze mia sorella. Ed ecco la cappella. Ogni pennello è sotto, e giù con il dubbio sappio ciò. Signor pittore, oh, nessuno, avrei giurato che fosse di tornar il cavaliere Cavallarossi. No, sbaglio, il paniere intanto. No. Angelus Domini unziavit Marie, et concepide Spiritus Sancto, et ancilla Domini, fiat mihi secundum verbum tuum, et verbum caro factum est, et habitait in nobis. Che fai? Recito l'Angelus. Solta in folle il suo ritratto. Di chi? Di quell'ignota che gli passati a pregar qui venia. Tutto devoto e pia. È vero, e tanto è lei infervorata nella sua preghiera, ch'io le pinsi non è visto il bel sembiante. Fuori, Satana, fuori! Dammi colori Eccellenza, vado.
Fai il tuo piacere.
Tieni il paniere, fa penitenza.
Fame non ho.
Oh, mi rincresce. Pari quale sei più? Oh!
Gente là dentro! Della spenta Repubblica Romana
Oggi parola da Castel Sant'Angelo
disponete di me Civatemi è una donna celosa un re stanchio la rimando eccomi
sono stretto dei forti che ho dato recco
questo paniere del cibo e vino.
Grazie.
Adesso.
Grazie.
Adesso. lasciami al lavoro.
Mi discacci.
Ce l'ho già, lo sai.
Vado. Chi è quella donna bionda laggiù?
La Maddalena ti piace?
Troppo bella.
Prezioso elogio.
Ridi, quegli occhi celestrini gialli vedi.
Ce ne tanti pel mondo.
Aspetta. E la davanti.
Vada.
Vedi, t'amo,
Sicuro caso.
quel passi, e quel mi sveglia. Questo
Via mia.
Accetta.
È buona la mia Tosca, ma credendo al confessor nulla tiene celato con Dio vita. Che cosa fu prudente?
Siamo soli.
Sì, qual è il vostro disegno?
A norma dell'evento sir di stato o farci la nuova mia sorella
Piattavanti!
sì ascolti volebre pigliamento la sopratale vestito che taglio non beve più di indosserò quei panni
Or comprendo quel fare circospetto che il pregante fervore in giovin donna è bella ma vi ha messo in sospetto di qualche colpevor. Or comprendo che l'amor di sorella
tutto è lausato onde sottrarmi a scarpia sulla notte
Scarpia Figotto satiro che affina colle devote pratiche la voglia libertina è strumento lascivo talento fa il confessore il boia la vita mi costa vi salverò a indugiarsi la notte mal sicuro
Evo del sole
la cappella metti a un orto mal chiuso e poi c'è un canneto che va lungi pe campio la mia villa ecco la chiave innanzi se io vi raggiungo tornate con voi in vesti femminili
violento sì
però non monta il sentiero ad esempio
addio
Sorgesse il periglio, correte al pozzo del giardino. L'acqua è nel fondo, a mezzo di una canna un picciol varco, guida un antro oscuro, rifugio impenetrabile sicuro.
il canon de castello
Ho scoperta la fuga, con scarpe sospiri sguinzaglia,
addio
quando vedrò staremo a letto.
Sonno giubilo eccellenza non sei più ne son dolente chi con riso miscredente a Tosca. E nelle chiese inni al Signor. E sì, più una voglia di Dio. Sono voglia vestirsi. Apprestate per il Tedeum. Orresta e punta l'ugoniando raccoglio di piazza. Occhio alle porte senza dar sospetti. Ora te pesa le tue risposte. Prigionier di Stato, fuggì por ora da Castel Sant'Angelo. Sei rifugiato qui? Misericordia! Forse c'è ancora dove la cappella degli attavanti? Eccola! Le cancelli! Quelle pitture il cavalier Cavaradoschi sì il paniere poi la mente di Tosca o non sospetto o non te poco e detto che tu si trova nella cappella questo paniere certo, è il gesto del pittor, ma non di meno. Ascolta quello che sai. Io lo sai ripieno di cibo delicato. Il pranzo del pittor avrà pranzato nella cappella. Non ne aveva la chiave né contava a pranzar. Disse egli stesso, onde io l'avea già messo al riparo. Uomine! Ora tutto è chiaro, la provvista del sacrista, l'angelati fu la preda. chiesa ci venite per pregare.
Chi pregate?
E non fate come certe sfrontate che han di Maddalena frise costumi e di te scannatore.
Che d'amore ne prove, ne prove.
E arnese di pittore questo
Un ventaglio dove sta?
là su quel palco. Qualcun venne certo a storbar gli amanti ed essa nel sfuggir per belle belle.
E la corona, e la stella, e la tavotte, presago sospetto.
Sortito l'effetto.
Ed io vedevo lui tutta curiosa, per dire di negare stasera il cielo s'infosca. Una ripelle lacrima scende le belle guance di ora. Dolce signora, te mai ancora. Darei la vita per asciugar quel pianto. Io qui mi strappo e intanto dal gran braccio le mie spalle drede.
Or del veleno.
Dove son? Potesse coglierli traditori. A cuore sospetto, ai nomi l'amore la vita ricetta. Traditor, traditore. Oh mio benedito insozzato di fango, e piomberò in danza. Tu non avrai stasera, giuro!
In chiesa.
Io mi perdono.
vestirti una carrozza presso, seguila dovunque cada, non visto provvedi.
Sta bene, il convegno.
Palazzo Farnese. Ah, Tosca. Nel tuo cuore s'annida Sardia. Ah, Tosca. E Sardia che sceglie il falco della tua gelosia. Alta promessa nel tuo pronto sospetto. Nel tuo cuore sanguina Sardia. Ah, Tosca. Al nostro mi nome di Don, qui regi celere terra. Ah, cuori di meraviglia, e il fato del ribelle è la più preziosa di quegli occhi vittoriosi che della fiamma il languidir con strasino valor prove mie braccia il languidir cavod
Scarpia, oblivious to the church service, fantasizes about conquering Tosca. That was Act 1 of Puccini's Tosca, coming to you live from the Met, starring Sonia Yoncheva, Vittorio Grigolo, and Željko Lucic, conducted by Emmanuel Viome. They're at the end of Act 1. And now we're going to go backstage in just a sec to our HD host, Isabel Leonard, with Donald Palumbo.
Amazing choral scene. I am very excited to speak with Donald Palumbo, the Met's chorus master. Hi, Donald.
Hi.
Hi. Donald, how do you get the chorus to sound so rich and powerful during the Te Deum we just heard?
Well, I think Puccini did most of the work. As you see, we come at a moment where almost the entire orchestra drops out and all we have is the brass. Scarpia and the chorus singing unison. It's not
just
like it's
stunning.
very complex writing, but
Wow.
it's such an amazing moment coming at the end of the dramatic swells of the rest of the act.
Oh, so it stops your heart.
Yeah, it really does. And again, it's the simplicity is what makes it work. It is so powerful.
Wow. They've performed Tosca so often, so what do you do to help keep it fresh?
I think it's easy to stay fresh with Tosca because it's one of those operas that every moment on stage something is happening dramatically. There's no really rigid structure as far as meter that just keeps going bar to bar. Everything is flexible.
Does the new production help?
That certainly helps. You know, every time we are confronted with new staging, I think it brings new personality into the chorus. So we love doing Tosca.
Oh, well, I also know that Puccini's choral music can be very rhythmically tricky and precise. Do you have any tricks to keep it all together?
Well, for Tosca, for example, the only difficult rhythmic complexity is in the scene with the sacristan. And that's when you have a very small chorus and all of the children, and we all come running on with the sacristan. And there Puccini has done some very inventive changes of meter, quick text, and again, it's scherzo-like scene. So it's a lot different from the Te Deum, and also then different from the cantata, which is going to happen in Act 2,
Wow.
where
A
we
lot of
sing off
variation,
stage
right.
with Tosca, and we basically are singing this very square, performing this cantata for the first time, while the orchestra basically accompanies us, and there's all this dramatic action going on stage.
Oh, that's great. Now, I know this is also a very busy time for the chorus. So, in addition to Tosca,
Yes.
they're performing L'Elisir d'Amore,
Yes.
Il Trovatore,
Yes.
Cavalleria Rusticana,
Yes.
Pagliacci,
Yes.
and you're in the midst of rehearsals for Rossini's Semiramide and Parsifal.
And Parsifal.
So, how do you navigate all of this?
Well, I think the combination of Semiramide and Parsifal has to be one of the most mismatched combos that we could possibly be doing at any time. I think the key is to understand the pieces dramatically and to really get into the mood of each opera. Parsifal is about time, in a way, standing still. And so we have these very slow sections that we have to maintain intensity in the tone of our singing. Whereas Semiramide, as you know with Rossini, it's just one constant 16th note after another. And we have so much text to memorize, and Semiramide hasn't been done here in about 25 years.
Yep,
so
correct.
we're all very excited about that.
Well, listen, the chorus, your chorus, the Metropolitan Opera Chorus is the best in the business. So
thank you,
so
Isabel.
much for talking to me.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye. I'm joined now by our Scarpia, baritone Željko Lučić. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello.
I have a question.
Yes.
How does somebody as nice as you play a character with no redeeming characteristics?
Well, thank you for that question. Yes. Well, I really don't know. This is just an introduction, what will happen. So you didn't see nothing yet. But, well, I really enjoying and I adore this role.
Do you have any ways of portraying a very evil character?
No.
No.
No, you know, I mean, we all have something evil in deep inside of us, you know, so from time to time you just let it go out. You be yourself in that situation, and well, that's it.
Now, with so much going on during the Te Deum, is it very hard to keep your musical and dramatic focus?
No. No, really it's not.
Just all in a day's work.
It's, yeah, exactly. So you just really have to be very concentrated on that, what you're doing, and if you're really there and you think about Tosca and what will happen and what you plan to do, then you're on the right place.
It's all there.
Yeah.
Now, unlike your two co-stars who are brand new to their roles, you have sung Scarpia many times.
Yes.
Yeah. So how has this new production shaped your portrayal? Has it changed it in any way?
Actually, yes. Actually, yes. This is a brand new Scarpia, as I would say, as I could say. I mean, you know, this set, this production, the costumes and everything, it's, let's say the Grand Opera is back. We go back to the 50s and 60s, where the golden age of the opera. You know, this is really something fantastic. And as I said, I was enjoying from the very beginning. and this is the best Tosca I ever did. Really, because I mean, you're there because it's all original.
Yeah.
You really have not to improvise anything or to do some stupid things, and this is it.
That's great. Now, in the next act, we will see one of the most famous confrontations in all of opera between Scarpia and Tosca,
Right.
where they face off. Tell me, what is it like working with Sonia?
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Well, from the very beginning on, as I said, really, it was a great pleasure. So when we step on the stage, now that it was even bigger. And, working with Vittorio and with Sonia, it's a pleasure and honor, of course. I know that this is the first time for them to sing, but they did a great job.
Yeah.
They did a great job.
They're
really.
fabulous. Now, last one. As a renowned singer of some of Verdi's greatest baritone roles, what are the different vocal demands of singing Puccini?
Well, I have to be honest. I really have. I don't make any difference.
That's great.
I really don't make any difference. I sing as I sing everything. So nothing changed.
That's
it.
fabulous.
Yes.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
Listen, Željko, thank you so much for
You're very
speaking to
welcome.
me.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks.
That was our HD host today, Isabel Leonard, one of our beloved mezzo-sopranos around here, speaking with today's Scarpia, baritone Željko Lucic. And before that, she was with the Met's esteemed chorus master, Donald Palumbo.
The chorus, the Met chorus is really, as Isabel said, something uniquely amazing and fantastic.
It really, they do so many shows rolling along at the same time. 4 different shows on stage, 2 in rehearsal. It's just incredible.
The mind boggles.
Yeah. I'm Mary Jo Heath. He's commentator Ira Sif. Coming up in this intermission, we're going to hear from tenor Matthew Polenzani, who's starring in Donizetti's L'Elisir d'Amore. And later on, we're going to join Isabel Leonard again when she speaks with our Tosca soprano, Sonia Yoncheva. And after intermission, of course, Act 2 of Tosca. Don't go away.
Well, at the risk of disappointing Mary Jo, we will leave New York there for a minute or so while they have an ad break, but we'll rejoin in time for those interval features that she mentioned. There are 2 intervals tonight, the second of which is the return of the ever-popular Met Quiz. We're still near the beginning of the season, so there's plenty of time to submit a question. If yours is chosen, then you'll earn yourself a gift package of opera recordings and publications. So here's a reminder of the address to write to. Metropolitan Opera Quiz, Metropolitan Opera, 30 Lincoln Center Plaza, New York, 10023 in the United States of America. That's Metropolitan Opera Quiz, Metropolitan Opera, 30 Lincoln Center Plaza, New York, 10023 in the United States of America. And please do remember to mention that you hear the broadcasts here on BBC Radio 3. Or you can submit questions online. Details are on the opera pages of the Radio 3 website. From there you can also find links to the Met's own website, where there are further details about the operas, including synopses and casting information. And it's also the place to go if you'd like to get a free copy of the 2017-18 Met Broadcast Guide. The guide contains photographs of the productions and a brief introduction to each of the operas being broadcast. So you can plan your evening. Act 2 of Tosca is due to begin at about 5 to 8, and then after the Met Quiz, Act 3 should start at about 9:10. And we'll stay with the Met for all of their interval features, including interviews with tonight's singers and singers from the upcoming Met productions. So now it's time to rejoin the Met to find out a little bit more about tonight's operas in one of the Met's regular features, a Music Time Capsule.
Tosca premiered in Rome on January the 14th, 1900. Here are some other things that were happening in the music world at that time. The young Arnold Schoenberg had just finished his extraordinary sextet, Verklärte Nacht. But the establishment objected to its harmonic language. One chord, the inverted ninth, was considered so bizarre that the Vienna Music Society eventually labeled it non-existent. In American popular music, ragtime was on the rise. Scott Joplin had recently copyrighted the Maple Leaf Rag. And one of the hit songs of the day was a jaunty greeting to a ragtime gal. A new musical was enjoying a sensational run in London, Florodora, and it would soon conquer the Broadway stage as well. Much of its success was attributed to a chorus line of 6 attractive young women. To be a so-called Florodora girl, you had to be 5'4" and 130 pounds. Russians had recently marked the centenary of their great literary giant, Alexander Pushkin. And Rimsky-Korsakov was composing an opera based on Pushkin's fairy tale poem, The Tale of Tsar Sultan. In it, the Tsar's son is magically transformed into a bumblebee. These are just some of the things happening in the world of music when Tosca had its premiere in 1900. We are live at the Met, where we're listening to Tosca by Giacomo Puccini, with the libretto by Giuseppe Giocosa and Luigi Illica. This new production is by David McVicker. The sets and costumes are by John McFarlane, and lighting is by David Finn. The movement director is Leah Hausman. The production was a gift of Jacqueline Desmarais in memory of Paul G. Desmarais Sr., the Pico Foundation, and Dr. Elena Prokopets in memory of her late husband, Rudy Prokopets. Major funding came from Rolex. The chorus master is Donald Palumbo, the fight director Thomas Schall. Musical preparation is by Gareth Morrell, Dan Saunders, Howard Watkins, and Joshua Green. The assistant stage directors are Gina Lipinski, Jonathan Loy, and Sarah Ina Myers. The stage band conductor is Gregory Buchalter, and the prompter is Joshua Green. The Italian coach is Loretta DiFranco, the children's chorus director is Anthony Piccolo, and the stage manager is Margot Mayer-Mal. Well, Ira, we're in the middle of a tragedy today, but in a couple of weeks, we'll get to hear that heartwarming comedy, L'Elixir d'Amore, The Elixir of Love by Donizetti.
Yes, just in time for Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's right. Well, it stars soprano Priti Yende as Adina and tenor Matthew Polenzani in one of his most endearing roles, the humble village boy, Nemorino. When Polenzani stopped by to chat recently, I gently suggested that Adina might be a bit out of Nemorino's league.
Oh, come on, let's start and be honest here. She's definitely out of his league. She is really quite a strong woman and an absolute village leader, you know, and someone who everyone looks to. She's out of his league. Thank God love prevails, you know. it's a nice thing.
She's a landowner. She's kind of, you're right, it opens with everybody sitting at her feet.
Nemorino does not have a lot to offer Adina, other than his whole heart, which is not a small thing. You know, I mean, people search the whole world over for a true love. And this is our guiding force practically in life, right?
Priti Yende is singing Adina. She's a wonderful artist, a charming person.
Mm-hmm.
She can be mean, though, if she has to.
Oh, man. Okay, so going back to the start, this is one of the problems. How do we show that they're in love? How do we show that that is an important thing to them while she's being so mean to him? You know, and it's a difficult line to walk on because we need to show that it means something to both of them, or else when she finally comes around in the end, it doesn't mean as much.
Right.
So
you have to have the full context.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So this was fun too with Priti, though. I mean, she's a great artist and a great singer, but it was fun just to be working together as people and as colleagues, and her saying, you know, this is what I think, and me saying, okay, I get that. Yeah, let me play. Can I play around that? And it was really fun. I mean, my ideas about Nemorino change a little bit every time around.
Donizetti's melodies are so sublime. They can be humorous, catchy, moving. As a singer, how do you kind of navigate that, and what things do you like to sort of bring out?
Well, in this piece in particular, it is a comedy, but it's a romantic comedy, I suppose.
Charming,
you know?
charming.
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing you have to start with, obviously, is Una Furtiva, which is one of Donizetti's greatest melodies. And, man, the way he sets with the bassoon, it's just like not the instrument you expect.
No.
And yet now, I think if I heard anything else playing it, I would shudder. You know, I mean, like, I need that because something about the quality of that sound, there's an earthiness to it that speaks a lot about the grounded guy who Nemorino is, even in his flights of fancy. Look, we get two things in minor key in the entire opera. Una Furtiva, which is a joyous little aria, frankly.
He just realized she loves him.
And also, when he finally says to Adina at the end of the first act, Adina, credimi, te ne scongiuro.
Yeah, don't marry that other guy.
Yeah. This also, it's in F minor. You know what I mean? It's like the only two moments in the whole piece that are in minor. And so you try to make your hay in these things in particular. But it's funny, I don't treat Donizetti's lyric melodies any different than I would treat Puccini's or Mozart's or anybody French even. The style is a little different, but I still always want to bring the most long legato line that I can. Whether it's something fun and light or something deeper and darker, I don't look for a way to make it different when it comes to the way I produce a sound. It has more to do with the way I think about the words I'm saying. You can make crescendo and decrescendi and things like that, and that's allowed inside of bel canto, and you're lucky. You get a 4-beat bar, but I might treat it like an 8-beat bar and push and pull inside of the rhythm in order to make the language spring to life. It's awesome, actually. Donizetti was especially good for that sort of thing.
Nice. Now, on February the 10th, audiences around the world are going to get to see your second live in HD broadcast of this very opera. So you must have like a library of live in HD performances by now, because there have been several. Bizet Pearl Fisher's nominated for a Grammy for Best Opera Recording on Sunday night. How about that?
We're
Are you
gonna
going?
Go. Yeah, we're gonna
good for you.
I said to my wife, I'm like, you know what? What are the odds of me getting it nominated for another Grammy? I mean, it's here in New York. So, I mean, I said,
Go
well,
for it.
we've got to go.
That was tenor Matthew Polenzani enthusing and singing. He's singing the role of Nemorino in Donizetti's L'Elixir d'Amour, the Elixir of Love.
Well, we'll have our fingers crossed for Matthew tomorrow night during the Grammy Awards.
For sure. Well, you know, Ira, he's got some stiff competition. The Met's own DVD of Berg's Lulu is also nominated. I kind of don't know what to root for, but I'm sure that Matthew and his wife will have a wonderful time while they're there. L'Elixir d'Amour will be our broadcast 2 weeks from today on February the 10th.
And Radio 3 will be joining the Met for that performance. Once again, we'll leave New York there for a moment for their ad break, which just gives me time to tell you about another opera coming up on Radio 3. As well as the regular Saturday evening slot, you can also hear wonderful opera from around the globe in afternoon concerts Thursday Opera Matinee. And if you've been enjoying Sonia Yonkova's performance tonight as Tosca, then you'll be pleased to hear that next Thursday she stars in Umberto Giordano's rarely heard opera Siberia. That's in a performance from last year's Montpellier Festival in France with Domingo Indoyan. He's the conductor. Tom McKinney introduces that next Thursday at 2 o'clock. And then next Saturday, we're back at the Met for Verdi's Il Trovatore with Maria Agresta as Leonora and Yong-Hoon Lee as Manrico. That starts at 6:30. Now, though, it's time to head back to New York, and they're starting with a quick feature on shepherds.
The idea of shepherds and shepherdesses inspired a lot of opera composers. I'm William Berger at the Met with a few examples. Guests at a ball in Tchaikovsky's The Queen of Spades are entertained by a tableau called The Faithful Shepherdess. The child in Ravel's L'Enfant et les Sortilèges is terrified when the sheep and their herders on his wallpaper come to life. A triple wedding is celebrated at the Herdsman's Festival in Rossini's Guillaume Tell. But in Gluck's opera, shepherds and nymphs mourn the death of Orfeo's bride, Eurydice. This boy tends his flock at dawn, unaware of the tragedy about to unfold in Puccini's Tosca. While this shepherd boy plays his pipe oblivious to the refugee from Venusberg, Wagner's Tannhäuser. And in La Damnation de Faust by Berlioz, the old scholar envies these joyous peasants who sing about a pastoral dance. These are just some of opera's many memorable evocations of sheep herders.
I'm Mary Jo Heath. Commentator Ira Siff is with me live at the Met, and we're coming up on the second act of Puccini's Tosca. To recap just a little, Act 1 ended with Scarpia plotting to capture the political fugitive Angelotti and his accomplice, Mario Cavaradossi, but he's also lusting after Cavaradossi's lover, the diva Floria Tosca. So, Ira, let's talk through what happens in Act 2. It takes place that evening in Scarpia's chambers at the Palazzo Farnese. Tosca has a performance elsewhere in the palazzo, and Scarpia sends her a note summoning her afterwards.
And through his open window, we hear strains of a dainty gavotte being played at the concert. In contrast, there's a dark, sadistic solo for Scarpia, who declares that he prefers violent conquest over soft surrender.
Yeah, and he boasts, "I pursue what I crave, sate myself on it, then discard it." His men arrive to report that they're unable to find Angelotti, but they've brought in Cavaradossi because they suspect he knows where the fugitive is hiding.
And now through that window, we hear Tosca's voice soaring as she performs a cantata with the choir, while on stage, Scarpia interrogates Cavaradossi.
Cavaradossi is defiant, and he's taken away to another room just as Tosca arrives. At first, Scarpia questions Tosca casually, but then he switches to describing in gruesome detail exactly what's happening to her lover in that other room. He's being tortured.
And the music intensifies as we hear a motif representing that torture.
Scarpia becomes more and more insistent. Over the sound of Cavaradossi's offstage cries and Tosca's pleading, he keeps asking her, "Where is Angelotti?"
It's harrowing, and we can hear how Scarpia's music stays in control as he ruthlessly drives the action, while Tosca can only react. Her music may sound powerful, but she's powerless, just playing into Scarpia's hands.
Finally, she's unable to bear any more, and she blurts out that Angelotti is hiding in the well in the villa garden. The torture stops, and Cavaradossi is dragged in. He's enraged when he finds out that Tosca betrayed his friend, but then news arrives that Scarpia's allies have been defeated in battle, and Cavaradossi openly gloats.
As he cries out Vittoria on triumphant high notes, infuriating Scarpia. At this moment, Cavaradossi basically seals his own death warrant.
And now Scarpia has even more leverage over Tosca. Once they're alone, she begs him to save her lover, and his answer is chilling. "I? You?" She asks his price.
Scarpia's solo here makes his intentions terrifyingly clear. There's a sick sensuality to the music as he tells her he's desired her for a long time.
And now, seeing her suffering, he only wants her more. Tosca declares she'd rather die, but Scarpia reminds her that her lover's life is on the line. In despair, she turns to God. Her magnificent aria here is a prayer. Visi d'arte, I have lived for art, I have lived for love.
I've tried to do good, I've been sincere in my faith. Why do you repay me like this? The aria suspends time as we hear Tosca's anguished, private reflections. In the music, there's both the devout theme from her visit to the church in Act 1 and the theme she just sang during the torture. It's such a moving juxtaposition.
And it's really shocking to come off this beautiful aria and hear Scarpia coldly telling her to make up her mind. A henchman returns with the news that Angelotti has killed himself. Scarpia presses Tosca for her decision, and silently she consents. Scarpia explains that he has to order a mock execution because he can't appear to be pardoning Cavaradossi. Tosca demands that he provide her with a letter of safe conduct so that she can leave Rome with her lover. But while Scarpia is writing it, she spots a knife on the table.
And in the remarkable, powerful melody the orchestra plays here, Puccini tells us everything that's going on in Tosca's mind. We can hear her see the knife and contemplate the murder.
The music builds as Scarpia finishes writing and comes at her, announcing, "Tosca, finally mine.
And then it erupts in dissonant, shattering chords as Tosca stabs him, crying out, "This is Tosca's kiss." The music is jagged as he staggers and falls, calling for help. She's finally the one in control.
Yes, she scoffs that he was killed by a woman. She orders him to look at her, and she tells him to die in damnation.
And once Scarpia is dead, the orchestra reprises that beautiful melody we heard, but this time it depicts Tosca's reactions to the violence she's just committed.
She has to pry the letter of safe conduct from Scarpia's lifeless hand. And seeing him lying there, she places candles around him and a crucifix on his chest. Her famous final line of this act is, "And before him all Rome trembled."
E avanti a lui tremava tutta Roma. There's irony in the line, but also in the fact that we still feel Scarpia's presence in the final muted chords of the act.
It's all very unsettling, and it gives me chills every single time, Ira. Well, in just a little while, we're going to go backstage once again and join our HD host, Isabel Leonard, when she's going to be chatting with our Tosca soprano, Sonia Yoncheva. Just a little bit about Tosca before we go. You know, this is a very fast-moving drama, Ira. It all takes place within 24 hours.
And that's a kind of trademark of a great deal of verismo, like Cavalleria Rusticana and Pagliacci, which we heard recently.
Oh, that's true. And we're going to have them again soon. So let's go backstage now, and we're going to hear from our Tosca.
Now I'm joined by Floria Tosca herself, soprano Sonia Yoncheva, who is singing Tosca for the very first time in her career. Hello, Sonia.
Hi, Isabel.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
You too. Sonia, even though you jumped into this production on pretty short notice, I know you've wanted to sing this role for a very long time. What draws you to Tosca?
I'm fascinated by the music, by this woman, and I always thought that she's young, she's bold, she's passionate, she loves Cavaradossi, that's why she's so jealous, and she's somehow defending her love till the end. That's why I wanted to do it.
That's great. How long, just out of curiosity, did you start studying the role?
Well, I should say I was already working on it since a long time because I was always interested in. And of course, when I got the proposal from the Met, I concentrated all my forces.
Yep, as we do.
Yeah, as we do.
Yeah.
With the time we have, you know how it is.
Of course, of course.
But yeah.
Tosca has been sung by some of opera's greatest divas, from Callas to Caballé, and interpreted in many different ways. Now, what is the essence for you in this role?
The essence is that I am bringing all the, how to say, the musical experience to our generation today. So I have a huge responsibility to say a new word in this part, if I can.
That's wonderful. That's really
Thank you.
wonderful, yeah. Now, do you feel like the ghosts of these legendary divas are helping you along the way?
Yes, and I love them.
It's nice. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like you to talk a little bit about Tosca's character. So what aspects of her personality did you and the director, David McVicker, want to bring out?
We really were concentrated on bringing Tosca as a very young person. This was our motto. We wanted to have Tosca young and bold and passionate and you know, always defending her word and just not be like we usually see Tosca very arrogant or selfish or narcissistic or whatever we can say about her.
Yeah.
And I didn't agree with this, and I was really happy that David and me, we were on the same wave.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah, that's the best
when that happens.
It made things easier.
Yeah. Now, I know you also seem to make a habit of debuting some of the most important soprano roles on the daunting stage of the Met. Here's your debut as Mimi in La Bohème and your debut as Desdemona in Otello.
Yes.
You are very brave. How do you do it?
Well, I don't think too much about it. What I have in my mind is that I love the Met. I love the audience. This stage is amazing. The hall has the most perfect acoustic for me, for opera. And I pretty much enjoy it. I like the team around me. We're working so well together, and it's so fun and serious and concentrated. It's family, yeah. That's why I like to be here.
You have a really intense act coming up, your confrontation with Scarpia. Can you quickly tell me how you balance the vocal and dramatic demands?
Well, in the beginning, I was thinking a lot. Now I don't think anymore. I just throw myself in, and that's it.
That's fabulous. Now, it goes without saying that you look stunning.
Thank you.
So, in bocca al lupo.
Crepi lupo. Thank you.
That was our HD host, Isabel Leonard, speaking with our Tosca, Sonia Yoncheva, right there before Act 2. In Act 2, we're going to hear in order of vocal appearance, Željko Lucic as Scarpia, Christopher Job as Sciarrone, Brenton Ryan as Spoletta, Vittorio Grigolo as Cavaradossi, and Sonia Yoncheva as Tosca. And here is Maestro Emmanuel Viome on the podium, asking the orchestra to bow with him. Let's hear Act 2 of Puccini's Tosca.
Tosca è un buon falco, certo a quest'ora I miei segugi le tue prede azzannano. O manso al palco vedrà l'aurora, Angelotti e il bel Mario al laccio penderà. Tosca a palazzo, un ciambellante ossia pur ora in traccia. Apri. Tarda è la notte, alla cantata ancora manca la diva, e strimpellan gavotte. Tu attenderai la Tosca insolentata, e dirai ch'io l'aspetto finita la cantata. O meglio, le darai questo biglietto, ella verrà, per amor del suo Mario. Per amor del suo Mario, al piacer mio s'arrenderà. Al dei profondi amori e a profonda miseria. A più forte sapore la conquista violenta e il mellifluo consenso. Io di sospiri e di anticinosi al velo mari poco m'appago. Non so trarre accordi di chi parrà e oroscopo di fior. E far l'occhio di pesce flusso dell'opera divina. Spoleto è giunto, entri in buon punto. O galantuomo, comando la caccia. Santi Ignazio m'aiuta. E la signora seguimo la traccia. Giunti a un'erma villetta tra le frate perduta. Ella v'entrò. Esci sole ben presto. Allora scavalco le sue il muro del giardin come cagnotti. E piombo in casa. E già lo soletta. Fiuto, razzolo, fugo. La giochi non s'è trovato. A cane, a traditore, e forti pasi sto al porche. Gesù! C'era il pittore. Paradossi. Ei sa come la sua s'asponde, ogni suo gesto, ogni accento tradia, calme farta ironia, chi lo trassi in arresto. E non pare. Egli è là. Introducete il cavaliere. Cammero aperti e il giudice del fisco. Tal violenza! Cavaliere, mi piace accomodarvi. Cosa sapere? Sedete. Aspetto. E sia. Castel Sant'Angelo. Ignoro. Ora si pretende che voi l'abbiate accolto il Sant'Andrea provvisto di cibo e di vesti. Menzogna! E guidato al vostro potere sovrano. Nego le prove. Un suddito fedele. Tal fatto! Chi m'accusa? I vostri spiriti in van frugar la vita. Segno che ben celato. Sospetti di spia. Alle nostre ricerche egli rideva. E rida ancora, e rida ancora. Questo è luogo di lacrime. Or basta. Non lo so. Negate d'avergli dato cibo. Nego. E vesti. Nego. E asilo nella villa e che va si è nascosto. Nego! Nego! Via, cavaliere, riflettete. Saggiare potesta stinatezza vostra, angoscia grande, pronta professione. Consiglio, dite. Dove dunque Angelotti? Non lo so. Ancora l'ultima volta. A me! Non so! Dove quell'aria scomentata.
Scomento recundo
La storia del ventaglio
fu sciocca gelosia.
la davanti non era dunque alla villa.
No, era solo.
Ne siete ben sicura?
Nulla sfugge ai gelosi, solo.
Davvero?
Sì.
Quanto par che abbiate paura di tradirvi. Sciarrone, e dice il cavaliere, Basta, Roberti! È svenuto!
Assassino! Voglio vederlo!
Portatelo qui! Giardino va, spoletta!
Mai tradito! Maledetto!
Eccellenza quale come che vuol dire l'aria fritta come stagia scolpita e scolpita come amaretto al tarugo con la porta vincitore vas no me la sei in fuga
Falcenti tremar, libertà sorge gloria e minarnia.
Luce pagana,
E sofferto martire, e vittoria, e dopo, e vanno sogno,
cena fu interrotta. Così accasciata io, mia bella signora, sedete qui. Volete che cerchiamo insieme il modo di salvarlo? E allora sedete e veniamo. E intanto un sorso ed in Spagna un sorso per rincorarvi.
Quanto?
Quanto?
Il prezzo! Fede debbo tradire, ne voglio altra mercede, ne voglio altra mercede. Quest'ora io l'attendeva, già mi sfruggeva sguardo che odio inneggiava mie brave inferociva. Agil quale o pardo avvincasti alla mente, nell'istante ho giurata mia. Fallace speranza, la regina farebbe grazia ad un cadavere. Come tu modi, Oddio!
così ti voglio. Asimi d'amore! Via! Così, il tamburo la scorta, ultima i condannati. Il tempo passa, ai, e l'oscura bocca laggiù si gonfia. Là, si frizza un patino. Al potario per tuo volere non resta che un'ora di vita.
Vedi
dissolvi.
Mi vuoi supplice ai tuoi piedi.
Chiedo un istante.
Mi fai ribrezzo.
Che va? Eccellenza, l'angelotte a nostro giungere succida. E tempo si appenda morto alle porte. E l'altro prigioniere, il cavalier Cavararossi. È tutto pronto, eccellenza.
Dio m'assisti.
Aspetta.
Molli per un istante lo voglio.
Occorre simulare, non posso far grazia perla. Bisogna che tutti abbian temor col cavaliere. Quest'uomo fido provvederà.
Ti m'assicuro.
Ordin ch'io gli darò voi qui presente. Spoletta, chiudi. Voltato dal viso, il prigionier sia fucilato. Attendi, come facemmo del conte Palmieri, simulata, come avvenne del Palmieri, hai ben compreso.
Voglio avvertirlo io stesso.
E sia, e darei passo. Vada. Allora guarda. Sì, come Palmieri. Io tenni la promessa.
Non ancora. Vuole un salvo condotto onde fuggire dallo stato con lui.
Partir dunque volete?
Sì, per sempre.
Si adempia il volere vostro. E qual via scegliete?
La più breve.
Civita vecchia.
Sì.
Tosca, having killed Scarpia rather than yield to him, leaves very quietly to save her lover. That was Act 2 of Puccini's Tosca, coming to you live from the Met with Sonia Yoncheva, Vittorio Grigolo, and Joko Lucic, conducted by Emmanuel Villaume. Oh, very spooky when she left there, Ira. I'm Mary Jo Heath. Commentator Ira Sif is with me, and in just a moment, we're going to go backstage because HD host Isabel Leonard is going to be chatting with Vittorio Grigolo. So, Ira, that aria.
Oh, Visitata, you know, it's such a dividing line in the action-packed act. It gives us a moment of repose, which we so need. And in a strange way, it gives us a glimpse of Tosca the diva in the way that the interpreter of the role presents the aria.
Yes, very much so. And then the action picks up, and bing, bang, boom, it all happens.
Yes,
she sees the knife, she stabs him, and then all those wonderfully famous lines that are there at the end of Act 2. We're just getting ready to go backstage. I think we're just about to see Isabel and Vittorio Grigolo.
We're with tenor Vittorio Grigolo, our irrepressible Cavaradossi. Hi, Vittorio.
Hi, Isabel.
Hi. Vittorio, it is hard to believe that this is your first time singing Cavaradossi. I mean, you're obviously
It was the first time when we sang Werther together, so and I was covered in blood. So it looks like we have always to speak when I am full of blood.
I'm in the wrong costume.
Yes, you are, but you're never on the wrong costume.
What makes this such a good fit for you artistically?
Listen, this is something I was waiting since a lot of time. I mean, Mario Cavaradossi, it was a dream role. I was a little shepherd singing Io dei Sospiri that you're gonna actually, the public gonna listen it very soon.
Yeah.
And I was a little shepherd of 13 years old, and Luciano was waiting for me at the end of this role.
Luciano Pavarotti was your Cavaradossi when you were 13?
Time. Yes. So I was waiting there, and he was saying, bravo, bravo, one day you're gonna sing the aria. But I said, when? Now, 27 years later, I'm here next to you, and really soon we're gonna sing this beautiful piece that actually I would like to say to everybody, it's an inspiration because we don't have to forget the senses. We are so technologically advanced, but this aria talks through the senses. E lucevano le stelle, ed olezzava la terra, stridea l'uscio dell'orto. He's really thinking about everything is going to lose. All the senses is going to lose. So the life, you know, the five senses. So the smell, the view, the hearing, everything is going to lose until now from 1 hour. It's just only 1 hour. So he said, I'm going to lose everything. So, and everything is related to her. So it's so big. Sometimes love can be, you know, very fast. But
she's a lucky woman.
Yeah, she's a lucky woman. But like Einstein said, relativity of time. Everything is relativity of time. Can be 1 hour, but it could be like that hour could be the most amazing hour of your life or our life.
Wow, that's everything.
It's what we had in chemistry. Same thing when we had in Werther. We were both. You were crying like. I mean, I was trying to.
Let's not talk about me. I want to talk more about Cavaradossi. You have to tell me more about Cavaradossi. What is the key for you?
I mean, the key is to think there is a young, for the first time, actually, David did a great thing because he wanted to see, I wanted to see Cavaradossi, I wanted to see him young, alive, passionate, politically involved. So when he sees the other guy, he said, yes, I'm going to help you. I will cost my life, but it will give you all my energy of my life, but I'll save your ass. You know, like, I'm going to make it a statement. So, I mean, that was something incredible. And I mean, Mario Cavaradossi means also Rome. It means also a lot of my, when I was a kid, I lived maybe 15, 17 years in Rome doing my old school, and I was passing with the scooter every day and looking at Castel Sant'Angelo for real. So now
you're home. You're home in so many ways here.
Home, and I am home here at the Met. I mean, they're giving me a lot of. They opened me those doors, and here it's been a wonderful time.
Sonia said the same thing, that this felt like a family. Can you tell me a little bit how you and Sonia developed such a good rapport?
With Sonia, we had a great venture. It begins many years ago when I asked her, and she was younger than me, and I asked her, would you like to join me on a tour in Germany? We started the tour in Germany. She was singing a few arias, and then Sonia, you know, she's also with the same label. I invited her to have a duet with me, a romantic hero album, and then she flew away like a diva star. So
That's
now she's
amazing.
here. She's
Listen,
here. And
we need to have our own show,
she's
apparently, so but I cannot let you keep on talking. You have so much more work
No,
to do.
it's okay.
So thank you so much.
It's just Tosca, you know, just a very simple part. So don't worry about it.
Thank you so much, Vittorio. Thank you.
I love you.
Ciao.
Well, that was host Isabel Leonard and the irrepressible
That's
tenor,
the word.
our cavaradossi Vittorio Grigolo. You have something, Ira?
Now, what can you say about Vittorio? I can say that I'm looking forward to his beautiful Le Lucevano, which I find very fragile, very touching, very moving, the way he presents the aria.
Me too. And I just have to mention that while they were doing that interview, the people in the theaters, they flashed a picture up of Luciano Pavarotti and little Vittorio Grigolo back when he was singing the role of the shepherd and Pavarotti was his cavaradossi.
Can you imagine?
He even put that picture on Instagram. He's obviously very proud of that and has wonderful memories of his time with Luciano.
Who wouldn't?
Well, we're all looking forward to the third and final act. But first, in just a few minutes, we're going to bring you the Toll Brothers Metropolitan Opera Quiz with special guest, soprano Jennifer Rowley. Don't go away.
Well, we will go away, but only for a couple of minutes while the Met has an ad break. Gives me time to let you know about Monday evening's Radio 3 in concert. Here's Andrew McGregor.
Celebrate the 100th anniversary of Leonard Bernstein with works that show three very different sides to his music. His sparkling Candide Overture, Songfest, an orchestral song cycle for 6 singers, and his showcase for the violin, Serenade. The BBC Symphony Orchestra performs Leonard Bernstein. Radio 3 in concert, tomorrow night at 7:30, and then available on the BBC Radio 3 website.
This is Radio 3 and we'll be rejoining the Met for Act 3 of Tosca very shortly. While the Met season has been going on, Radio 3 has been out and about recording performances from the British opera houses. We've just recorded an in-the-round production of Monteverdi's The Return of Ulysses at the Roundhouse in London. Roderick Williams had rave reviews singing the title role, so that's one to look out for. That'll be broadcast on the 24th of February. And then at the beginning of March, we're at the Royal Opera House for a production of Bizet's Carmen. That stars Anna Goriachova in an intense and very physical production by Balikoski, first seen at the Frankfurt Opera. Hear that on the 10th of March. Full details of those, along with upcoming Met performances, as always, on the Radio 3 website. Very nearly time for the Met quiz, so let's go back to New York for that, and a quick taster of next week's broadcast.
Here's a preview of next Saturday's matinee broadcast, live from the stage of the Metropolitan Opera. Il Trovatore, Giuseppe Verdi's searing melodrama about cycles of revenge through generations. Young-hoon Lee is the troubadour of the title, Manrico, at war with the world and with his own true identity. Jennifer Rowley is Leonora, as brave in love and life as the warriors fighting over her. Quinn Kelsey is the Count de Luna, unstoppable in his lust for blood and his desire for Leonora. And Anita Rachvelishvili is the gypsy Adzuchena, undone by terrible forces from the past. Marco Ermiliato leads the Metropolitan Opera Chorus and Orchestra in one of the most exhilarating scores. Verdi's Il Trovatore, next Saturday's broadcast, live from the Met. live at the Met with Puccini's Tosca. It's the second intermission, and I am delighted that it's time for our very first opera quiz of the season. Our panelists today are Ken Benson, who's an artist manager and career consultant at the Juilliard School, Melanie Spector, a former Met's Children's Chorus member who's now a college student, and Jonathan Tolan's a playwright and screenwriter. And so now I'm going to turn you over to today's host, voice teacher and vocal consultant, Gerald Martin Moore. Is everybody ready down there? Let's hear a big hoop and holler for our first opera quiz. We're off to List Hall.
Thank you, Mary Jo, and a very good afternoon and warm welcome to our panelists, studio audience, and radio listeners throughout the world. This being Tosca, let's begin with a question about death. We just heard the Baron Scarpia being murdered in the most spectacular fashion. For someone who was so articulate earlier in the opera, his final words were pretty sparse. Basically, help, I'm dying. Panelists, please tell us about operatic characters who expire with more linguistic flair than Scarpia. Will you quote some especially memorable dying lines and tell us why you find them striking? Melanie.
I love the Liebestod at the end of Wagner's Tristan und Isolde. The whole thing is beautiful, but it ends with the two little words höchste Lust, which basically means sublime desire or delight. And it ends on this very pianissimo F sharp that's for singers right in the passaggio. And for a big voice like Birgit Nielsen, who sings it on the 1966 recording from Bayreuth, conducted by Karl Böhm, it's like she takes her magnificent, huge voice and parks it in a really tiny spot, parking space, and it's just so beautiful, and it sums up basically what the entire opera means.
Ken.
I have one tiny one and then one a little bit longer. I thought of the end of Massenet's Manon, because as she's dying, with her last breath, she says, c'est l'histoire du Manon Lescaut. This is the story of Manon Lescaut, and it's just kind of like she puts the punctuation on her own life. But the one I really thought of is the end of Traviata, because in the last act, Violetta has been expiring, the life's been fading out of her, and there's sort of a gathering at her deathbed of Alfredo and Germont, and suddenly she says, Estrano, and she goes almost into a reverie, and she says that all the pains of my sickness are disappearing, I feel reborn, and she rises to a peak and then collapses, and I find that a fascinating moment.
Excellent. Jonathan.
One of my favorite characters in opera is Roderigo in Don Carlo, and he is shot while visiting Don Carlo in prison, and he uses his last few moments to once again ask Carlo to save the Flemish people. And usually it ends on a cadenza, I'm not sure it's in the libretto, but it's Salva la Fiandra, and then he dies. And I think it's one of the great noble examples of lobbying that exists in all of literature and art.
Yeah. So all four choices, a lot more eloquent than Baron Scarpia. But very soon we'll hear Act 3 of Tosca. The beginning features a remarkable soundscape of the church bells of Rome at dawn. That inspired us to create a music ID round of other evocative bells in opera. We'll play some clips, see if you can identify the operas they come from, and if you can, tell us the situation in which we're hearing these bells. May we have the first example, please? I think Melanie's hand was up first.
That is Wagner's Parsifal, going into the second scene of Act 1, when Gouvernements is about to show Parsifal what the religious ceremony is and what the process is, and if he'll be able to answer this mysterious question at the end of it, which he can't.
Excellent, Melanie, well done. Number 2, please. So Jonathan, adding your own bell there.
I believe that's Suor Angelica.
Correct. Yeah. Puccini's Suor Angelica.
In the convent, calling the sisters to service.
The opening of the opera. Yes, correct. Example number 3, please. So Melanie had your hand up first.
That is Thomas Otis's The Exterminating Angel, which was just done at the Met earlier this season. I believe, is that at the end when they just have escaped the room after being stuck for several days?
It's the moment where the clock strikes as everyone faces their second night trapped in the room.
Okay.
That's an excellent answer. Well done. The last example, please. Now, everyone had their hand up very fast, but I think Ken beat the other two.
It's Boris Godunov, and first I thought it was going to be the beginning of the coronation scene, but it sounds like the death scene when Boris is dying and all the BRs come into the forum at the last moment with the prayer books and the candles and all of that.
Yes, Mussorgsky's got
Mussorgsky's
Boris enough where Boris seems to hear the bells tolling his death. Correct. Excellent. Well done, panel. So, and now it's my pleasure to welcome someone new to the quiz, a soprano our radio audience first met as Roxane in Alfano's Cyrano di Bergerac just last spring. Now she's thrilling audiences as Leonora in Verdi's Il Trovatore. Please help me welcome Jennifer Rowley.
Thank you.
So, Jennifer, you recently sang Tosca here too, and you sang Leonora just last night. So with two Met role debuts in just 1 week, where do you get the energy?
A lot of gluten-free pancakes and yoga. No,
I knew it wouldn't be something.
No, I really, I try to take very good care of myself, because when you have to do 2 role debuts in 1 week, and I had really honestly 5 rehearsals for the Trovatore. Wow. Rest, lots of rest, and lots of yoga to keep yourself calm, and eating right, and just, I mean, it's like being an athlete. You have to really take care of the body and the voice.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
So in both Tosca and Trovatore, the soprano has to bargain with the baritone for the life of the tenor. So tell us, who do you think would win a charm contest, Scarpia or the Count de Luna?
Okay, my honest answer, I really think Scarpia wins that charm contest, and I'll tell you why. Conte di Luna doesn't even try. He is in it to win it the whole time. He doesn't try to be nice. He doesn't try to be charming. He's all about her the whole time. Scarpia, at least in Act 1, we get a little bit of charm. He's trying to persuade her, and it makes him more evil, of course. I mean, his manipulation of her in Act 1. But at least he's trying. He even at one point in David Mivicker's production tries to kiss her hand. So at least he's trying to put on a little bit of charm. Conte di Luna doesn't do anything like that.
Okay, so that's a very clear winner.
Very
for you.
clear for me.
Okay. So now I'm going to ask Jennifer to help us with our Presto round. In honor of Leonora and Tosca's dilemmas, we've collected a diverse list of horrible things baritones say to sopranos in operas. Jennifer, why don't you turn the tables on the baritones and read these lines yourself?
Okay, panelists. I'm going to read these libretto lines in English. You tell me who's saying them to whom and in what opera. You ready with your bells? Okay, number 1. Which viper?
Ken.
That's Marcello at the end of the quartet of Act 3 of La Bohème saying it to Musetta.
Bravo.
And she calls him a house painter. The worst thing ever.
Fair enough, then.
Okay, number 2. I'm the father of the reckless boy who is rushing to his ruin, bewitched by you.
Jonathan.
Would that be Germont in La Traviata?
It would
Bravo.
indeed.
To Violetta. Yes.
Okay, number 3. From the company of gods you are cut off, expelled from the immortal tribe.
Jonathan.
Wotan to Brunhilde in the 3rd act of Die Walküre.
Wow.
This is good.
All right.
It's looking good today.
Very good. Okay, number 4. Go far from my sight. You're a faithless, wicked woman, and you're trying to disgrace me.
Could be any. Do we need a
Could be a
hint
lot.
for this one?
Yes. Would you like a hint?
Yeah.
Okay, in Italian, va lontan dagli occhi miei. And there's a bit of a double standard here. This guy has been far from faithful himself.
Still
good one.
bewildered. This is a good one. Studio audience, anyone? Sorry? Count Almaviva to the Countess in Mozart's Le Nozze di Figaro, finale of Act 2.
Good job. Bravo. Okay, number 5. Learn to control your feelings. Not everyone will understand you as I do. Want a hint? This is his response to getting a love letter from her.
Jonathan.
It's Eugene Onegin to Tatiana at the end of the first act.
Yes, yes, by Tchaikovsky. Excellent.
Okay, number 6. Yesterday, your mother offended me. I drowned her.
Ken.
My favorite. I represent La Gioconda in this. That's the end of La Gioconda. When Gioconda is going to give herself to Barnabas, stabs herself, he says, "Last night your mother offended me. I drowned her."
Bravo.
Ponchielli's La Gioconda.
Okay, number 7. Mark my words, you'll marry him, and if he bleeds to death now, then you'll marry his corpse.
Jonathan.
Oh. Now I may be wrong, but is that Lucia? No, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Would you like a hint? He really, really wants her to be a baroness.
Okay.
Turn it over.
Studio audience? Correct.
Bravo.
Der Rosenkavalier Strauss, Faninal to Sophie.
Bravo.
Well done.
Okay, and the last one. Die, and if God pardons you, may you be damned here below.
Another tricky one.
Hint? Conveniently, Sois maudite rhymes with her name.
Ken?
Well, does Sois maudite rhyme with Marguerite?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's Valentine as he's dying, stabbed by Faust, and he's cursing his sister Marguerite.
Correct. And that round was a tie between Ken and Jonathan.
Very good.
Well done. So another thing Tosca and Il Trovatore have in common is that they were both based on plays, as many operas are. Let's talk a bit about background, the kind of things that may not have made it into the libretto, but may influence the way an opera is performed. We often speak with singers about their characters' backstories and whether or not they like to draw on them. Jennifer, what's your perspective on this with Leonora, for example?
Well, for me as an actress, I always go to the source material. It's the very first thing that I do whenever I prepare a new role. There is something so special about the plays in learning about these characters, and often you learn the most about what other characters say about your character, and it's incredibly interesting. So, for example, Leonora, unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, and Trovatore is based upon a play by Garcia Gutierrez called El Trovador, and it's in Spanish, and there's no translation of it online. But what I was reading is that Verdi was in love at that point with Strepponi, and apparently she did speak Spanish. So we think that she translated this play to Verdi, and he fell in love with it as she does. And she says in a letter, please hurry up and finish our Trovatore. So it must have been something that they shared together. Unfortunately, there's nothing about the character, because I can't read it in Spanish, that I can draw upon. So at that point, then I have to look at her in terms of what could I create for her to make her special? And for Leonora, I equate her to Juliet. The parallels between the two characters are incredible. She's a young woman, extremely passionate, in love, and willing to give her life for love. From the very beginning, from her very first aria, she is willing to die for this man. And Juliet in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is very much the same character, young, passionate, vibrant, and a bit of a rebel. And so when there's not a ton of background for me to draw upon from the play, I create something for myself because I like to have that information. For somebody like Tosca, we have Sardou's play, La Tosca, which is incredible, and it informs so much of the character. You really can understand her if you read this play, and she's not this crazy, out-of-control diva, and what's fascinating about this particular production you're listening to and watching today, David McVicker read this play and put so much of it into his production and into his characters. And he had discussions with all of us about who these people were and how they moved and how they felt and how old they were, because that's incredibly important to know that these are all, Tosca and Cavaradossi are young people and they're newly in love, and it's incredible, this passion that they have for each other. So I love that the plays inform the operas.
Great, that's a great answer. Thank you. So panelists, let me ask you something from the audience's point of view. Does it make a difference to you if the source material is famous in its own right? Is it possible or even desirable to unknow things and accept the opera on its own terms? Ken?
Well, I think it's I don't think it's necessary to be famous. In fact, much of many 19th century operas were based on they became more famous as operas, but whether they were novels or plays, I think it's incredibly fascinating and important just to know what inspired the composer and librettist. So I think it's fascinating, and I think that once I know, I think it's possible to unknow things, because I think most composers and librettists did amazing jobs of adapting and cutting as they would have to do in an opera. But I still think it's fascinating to know that those things were there originally.
Melanie?
Exactly. As far as cutting and pasting things into, an opera from an original play, I think Verdi and Boito and Otello is a great example of that. They completely eliminated Act 1 of the play.
Mm-hmm.
They took a 3,500 line play and cut it down to 800. And even without Act 1, you can just use that love duet at the end of Act 1 between Otello and Act 1 of the opera, to clarify, between Otello and Desdemona to catch you up on what exactly happened. So it was a beautiful way of putting that together.
Okay. Jonathan sadly cut off in your prime there.
I was going to say something so brilliant.
I'm sure. We'll save it. We'll start with it next time. Those beautiful chimes you hear are not the bells of Rome, but they do tell us it's time to return to Act 3 of Tosca. I'd like to thank our panelists, Ken Benson, Melanie Spector, and Jonathan Tollins, and a special thanks to our wonderful guest, Jennifer Rowley.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald. That was Gerald Martin Moore with the Opera Quiz down in List Hall. I'm Mary Jo Heath with commentator Ira Siff, and we are live at the Met. And we're coming up on the dramatic conclusion of Puccini's Tosca Act 3. You'll remember at the end of Act 2, Scarpia lay dead, and Tosca was on her way to Mario with a letter of safe conduct. This act, as you heard Vittorio Grigolo mention, takes place at the Castel San Angelo, up on the rooftop of the Castel, where Mario is to be executed at dawn. So, Ira, let's talk through the story and the music. We begin with a gorgeous orchestral prelude.
And it's among Puccini's most evocative orchestral passages, and that's saying something when one thinks of Butterfly, Bohème Turandot. It depicts perfectly the mood of pre-dawn Rome. The composer took great pains in terms of authenticity, researching the proper dialect for the song of a shepherd boy we hear in the distance, trying to reproduce the pitch of the bells at St. Peter's in Rome.
And the prelude ends in the haunting melody we're going to hear in Cavaradossi's famous aria. He bribes the jailer to let him write a farewell note to Tosca, but as he does, he's overwhelmed by memories of her.
A solo clarinet plays that plangent melody as Mario begins this wrenching aria, E lucevan le stelle. The stars were shining.
He's recalling details of a rendezvous with Tosca. And as Vittorio pointed out to us, he invokes all 5 senses in these details.
Yes, the fragrance of the night air, the rustle of her dress. The tenor takes up the melody, tenderly savoring the memory of their kisses, their caresses. But it all gives way to despair as Mario faces the prospect of dying when he has never loved life so much.
But then, like the sunrise, Tosca appears and hands him the letter of safe conduct. She relates her ordeal and how she murdered Scarpia.
She does this as a woman of the theater would. She's reliving it for Mario's benefit, accompanied by musical motifs that illustrate the actions. At the climax of this narrative, her voice soars up to a high C, then it plunges down 2 octaves as she describes plunging the knife into Scarpia's heart.
And Cavaradossi responds with a lovely, gentle arietta, O dolci mani. He marvels that her sweet hands were capable of such power. Then Tosca turns her attention to practical matters and explains that there will be a mock execution. For the moment, the lovers allow themselves to imagine the glorious new life they'll begin far away.
Tosca even coaches Cavaradossi on how to fall convincingly for the firing squad. But as the soldiers assemble with their rifles, her mood turns to nervous impatience. The orchestra plays a heavy, almost funereal melody that gradually builds in tension.
Yes, it does. Then the men aim, they fire, and Cavaradossi falls. Tosca warns him not to get up until the squad is left. But once they're gone, she slips to his side, only to scream in horror as she realizes he's dead. Scarpia tricked her. The execution was real. Moments later, the police storm in, having discovered Scarpia's body. Tosca runs to the top of the castle wall, cries out, O Scarpia, we meet before God, and falls to her death as the opera ends.
And the great theme of Mario's aria blazes out in the orchestra, reminding us of their ill-fated love.
And I'm always taken aback that everything ends so quickly. The men line up, they shoot, she finds them, they run up, she jumps off the castle. It's just like it's over just so suddenly.
The denouement is shocking still today.
It really is. So, more about Tosca. Of all of Puccini's operas, Ira, this one is the one we associate most with the Verismo movement. It's gritty and it has that blood and guts kind of drama.
Yeah, but it's also, interestingly, musically, his most Wagnerian opera. Well, in terms of his using leitmotifs for characters and ideas. He did use them in other operas, but never as pervasively as in Tosca.
Yeah, in addition to the Scarpia motive we mentioned, there are so many other themes and motifs.
Of course, that Scarpia theme is the most striking example, and it's not always used in an in-your-face way. You know, sometimes we'll hear just a few fleeting notes from it lurking in the orchestra.
That's right. Well, in Act 3, we will hear in order of vocal appearance Davide Dale as the shepherd, Richard Bernstein as the jailer, Vittorio Grigolo as Cavaradossi, Sonia Yoncheva as Tosca, Christopher Job as Sciarrone, and Brenton Ryan as Spoletta. Emmanuel Villaume will be conducting. Now, the curtain is going to go up on the rooftop of the Castel San Angelo, as we mentioned, which is dominated by a great winged statue, the Archangel Michael, brandishing a sword. He stands on a parapet high above the stage against a turbulent gray sky. And as the music begins, a firing squad in blue uniforms is frozen in place on the stage.
Yes, an execution's just taken place.
Yes, it's very creepy the way that begins. Here's Maestro Villaume sharing in the applause with the orchestra. Let's hear Act 3 of Puccini's Tosca.
questa l'ora un sacerdote i vostri cenni attende.
Ma l'ultima grazia io vi richiedo.
Se posso,
io lascio il mondo, la persona cara. Consentite ch'io le scriva un sol motto. Unico resto di mia ricchezza è questo a te. Se promettete di consegnarmi il mio ultimo addio, esso è vostro.
vivete.
Leggiava la terra, stridea l'uscio del morto. E un caso sfiorava la terra, entrava una fragrante. Cadeva fra le braccia La prima sua grazia è questa,
e l'ultima,
che dici?
era tu sangue d'amore in follia, furidore, scongiuri e pianti, in van pazzo d'orrore, alla donna sei sorte. L'empio vostro dicea, già nei cieli, il poteva arrollavano i tamburi, rideva l'empio vostro, rideva già la sua preda pronta che sei bella, sì, alla sua le presso luccicava e scrisse il foglio liberatore. La vede l'orrore complesso, io quella
tu benigna
Nebile man tutte l'ordine di
mansuete pure, umaniette, bell'opre pietose, accarezzar fanciulli, a coglier rose, a pregar giunta per le sventure. Dunque in voi fate dall'amor secure, giustizia alle sue sacre armi depose. Voi deste morta e amari vittoriose.
viaggerò come se ora i cieli un'avventura è pronta, ma prima re di amore, prima sarò fucilato, finta ad ogni scariche simulato supplizio. A colpo cadi i soldati se'n vanno e noi siamo salvi, e noi siamo salvi. Poscia civita vecchia una tartana e via per mar. Liberi, via pel mar, che se dura in terra più, senti fluvi di rose, non ti muover che le cose aspettan tutte innamorati e raro sol per temere al morire, da te la vita prende ogni splendore, all'essere mio la gioia ed il desire. Nascondi te come di fiamme ardore, io folgorare i cieli e scolorire, vedrò nell'occhio tuo rivelatore e la verità delle cose più pure abbracciare da te, voce che sei più da servare, ci sarà guida in terra il mar non il mondo finché congiunti alle celeste sfere ed evacuire siccome avete sul mare assolutamente nuvole leggere, nuvole leggere. In un giungolo vado a colpo e di mestiere che tu subito cado. Non temere che cadrò sul momento e al natural, ma stammi attento di non farti male. Con scenica scienza io saprei la movenza. Parlami ancora come di anzi parlavi, e così dolce il suon della tua voce. Uniti e desolati diffondere per mondo i nostri anima freme in celestial crescente ardor primo colpo, giù,
giù.
ne rialzarti innanzi ch'io ti chiami.
No, amor,
E cadi bene.
come la Tosca in teatro.
Non ridere.
Così.
Così. Come lunga l'attesa, perché indugiano ancora. Già sorge il sole, perché indugiano ancora. Commedia, lo so, ma questa angoscia eterna pare. E tu appresta l'onore. Ecco un artista. Oh Mario, non ti muovere, s'avviano, taci, vanno, scendono, scendono, ancora non ti muovere. Presto su, Mario, Mario, su presto, andiamo, su, su.